to Yoga with Rach, and Rach, thank you very much for joining me. We're on our last week of our Taurus focused series, working through that lovely earthy, slow, steady, gentle practice. So week one we had a look at our mudra and our mantra of our Apana mudra and our mantra I have. In the second week we've had a look at our fluidity and our flexibility in our neck and our shoulders. Last week was full moons. We had a little practice with bringing in a little bit more of a vinyasa with our fluidity, really feeling into the sensations in our body. And then this week we're going to have a little go with staying active. So sometimes when we get in our comfort zones, and that can be one thing that Taurus is very known for, staying in their comfort zones. We can be creatures of our comforts. And even though I'm not a sun sign in Taurus, my moon is in Taurus. So I know I can get emotionally attached to, oh, but that's what I always do. That's what I like to do. That's what feels good. But sometimes we need to be aware, are we then going into a passive practice because we get into those creature comforts and go on autopilot. So it's trying to stay actively aware of what you're doing. So last week we had to go with the stretch, taking the hands behind us, interlacing the fingers. So we're going to have a little look at a variation of that when we come up to standing. So just finding a comfortable seat, using a block if you need to. And I will just say this now, you might need to have a brick block close by. You might be using the wall in this practice. So if you need to, do hit pause and find a block if you need a block, or just have one close by so you don't have to try and find it later. And do just be mindful that you might need to use a piece of wall for part of today's practice when we have a look at our shoulder stand. But for now, find what feels comfortable for you. And if you know you don't want to practice shoulder stand, don't skip the practice at all. Stay with it, and you can always leave that bit out and go into child's pose instead. So don't skip a whole practice if you know that there's one essence in it that you don't particularly want to do right now, because that might be taking you out of your comfort zone, but you get everything before that and after that instead, which is perfectly fine. Checking in, listening to your body. You might be coming back to that I have mudra. You might be working, mantra. You might be working with your Apana mudra. If you haven't worked with those yet, go back to beginning of the Taurus sequence or series. When you're ready, slowly moving into tabletop. So placing the body purposefully. So place the hands onto the mat, spread the fingertips nice and wide, pushing gently through the palms, the back of the knuckles, the fingertips. Knees are on the mat underneath the hips. Knees and feet are hip width apart. Inhale, start to lift the chin, lift the tailbone. Exhale, rounding through the spine, tuck the chin, the tailbone under. Same as we did in week 2, see if you can get these movements in your cat calves really slowly. So slow down and really stay in the moment with the breath. As the inhale begins, we start to lift the chin. And as the exhale begins, start to round the spine, tuck the chin, the tailbone under. To check in with your plank as you tuck under the toes, lift the knees, pushing the heels back. Check you're not dropping your hips. So we want to make sure that we have our nice support in our back, so we're not dropping and creating any tension in the hips. From there, slowly pull the shoulders back, pushing up into downward dog. Bend the knees, you're focusing on drawing the chest and the belly back towards the thighs, focusing on the breath. And then when you're ready in your own time, you might have practiced this when we did the Aries sequence. You're either going to walk or step or hop into your standing forward fold. And then rolling up to standing, stepping wide. So you might need to turn your mat around. We're going to take the hands behind us, interlacing the fingers. So roll your shoulders away from the ears, squeeze the shoulder blades together and start to pull the hands away from your back. So you're staying active here. Feet are wide, lift the chin if that feels comfortable in the neck. You're either staying upright or start to fold forward as you hinge from your hips. Pause as you get to your flat back. Check that you're not letting the hands collapse to the lower back, but see if you can let the arms lift up a little bit higher. And maybe you start to release forward, but keep the shoulders rolling away from the ears. So try not to let the arms collapse and drop. See if you can stay active in this stretch, as though someone's drawing you up towards the ceiling as you're trying to fold forward. Slowly lift to that halfway point, bring the hands to the lower back, lifting all the way up to standing. Bring the hands in front of you, interlace the fingers. Just make a note of which hand is on top. Right or index finger is on top. So right index finger or left index finger, and then change the interlace. So you might have to think about this, but if we go on autopilot and we find that creature comfort of always interlacing one particular way, we want to see if we can now do this the other way. So you might have to think about interlacing the fingers, then uninterlace so the other index finger is on top. Roll the shoulders away from the ears, lift the chin, and now that you've changed sides, you might just stay upright. Maybe it's still comfortable to fold to that halfway point, starting to lift the hands up. Or again, one more time, you might dive forward. Check that you're not letting the arms, the shoulders drop. So pull the arms up, staying active, so you're not collapsing in. Focusing on the breath. You might not stay here for as long, so when you're ready, lifting up halfway, bring the hands to the lower back. Continue lifting up as you release the arms. Just give the hands a little release and stepping towards the top of the mat. Inhale, raise the arms up. Exhale, folding forward, bend the knees, fingertips or palms find the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Your transition walk or step or hop into plank. We've got one chaturanga. Knees can stay high or lower the knees down. As you exhale, bend the elbows, find your way down to the mat. So we're going to check in with our cobra pose. So the feet are relaxed, turn or untuck the toes so the toes are pointing away. Hands on the mat underneath the shoulders. We can rest the forehead down onto the mat. Roll the shoulders away from the ears. Gently push the hands into the mat and start to lift the head up of the mat. So you're still looking down to the mat. So cobra pose should be quite low. And I know I'm quite bad at this one because I naturally go into this very, very high cobra, and in time I'm going to end up pulling into my back. So I want you guys to have a little practice with lifting into your cobra pose and see if you can lift your hands off the mat. So we want to be lifting up so the hands can stay off the mat. So you're not using the arms, you're not pushing into the lower back to lift yourself up into this pose. And if you're lifting up high and then you drop down, then you're going up too high. And it might be time for you to start having a go with upward dog rather than cobra pose in your sun salutations. But we're focusing on our low cobra. Also check what's going on with your glutes. So at the moment, my glutes are relaxed, my thighs are relaxed, but I want to see if I can start to engage into the glutes so that the knees and the thighs start to lift off the mat. So I'm starting to protect the lower back. So have a go. It might feel more intense. You might find that the legs want to lift up. Perfectly natural. Whenever you're ready, you can lower down one hand on top of the other, gently releasing into a pranam. So have a couple of goes, just checking in. Hands are on the mat, but gently. So they're just there for support rather than pushing into the hands to lift up. Maybe from there, you're then moving into locust pose. So make sure you keep the glutes engaged. You're the same as you would if you were drawing the belly in and up. Think about drawing the glutes sort of in and up so it pulls the thighs up. And maybe the legs start to lift so you can reach the arms back. Focusing on the breath. This might start to feel quite intense in the lower back because you're now activating into the muscles. And slowly lowering back down. You might just sway or rock the hips side to side. And even have a a check-in. So lying on your belly, head can be resting on the mat. Just have a check-in with engaging into the glutes. See what happens in your legs and in your back. So you don't have to lift into a pose to activate the muscles and then releasing. So you can lift and activate and then release and let go. Have one more go. Lift and activate, and notice the difference between clenching the butt and activating the butt. So it doesn't have to be this over intense activation. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders, tuck under the toes, gently draw them back into child's pose. And you're ready, slowly find your way up to sitting. So this might be the point where you're using the block. So practicing shoulder stand. If you're unsure with this one, do always double check. It's always better to listen to your body, especially if you have got anything going on in your neck and your shoulders. So there are a couple other variations that you might feel comfortable having a go with. One is using the block, one is using the wall, and you might not come up into a full shoulder stand variation, but listen to what your body wants you to do, what your body's happy to do. Don't push past your edge. So if you're using the brick block, you're going to be lying on your back on your mat, knees are bent, knees and feet are hip width apart, lifting into a bridge, and then place the block on the lowest level underneath the hips, the tailbone. Make sure it's on the bony part, not the fleshy part of your back. And then we can lift the feet, keep the knees over your hips, and lift the legs up into waterfall pose. And then your arms can relax. So this might be your supportive and restorative variation of a shoulder stand. You're welcome to stay here, lowering the legs and lifting back up into the pose as you're ready. Or perhaps you are going to have a go with the wall. And the wall again is a very nice way to be restorative, but also if you're new to shoulder stand and you're not sure how to find your way into shoulder stand, and I will link at the end of this video my tutorial we're going into shoulder stand so you can work with just that rather than skipping all the way to this part if that's what you're still working on. So we're going to use the wall, and when you're working with the wall you want to get as close as you can to the wall, so your hip and your shoulder are against the wall. You're then going to turn your back away from the wall as you lift the legs up. Then you've got a bum shuffle to the wall, and then you're in legs at the wall. So some of you might stay here, you're very welcome to. This is a very restorative pose, really lovely for releasing the hamstrings and the lower back. If you want to start to explore working towards your shoulder stand, leave the feet where they are, so you can push the heels into the wall, start to bend the knees and lift your hips and tailbone, and then your feet will find the wall. Bring your hands to your lower back, start to walk the elbows underneath the body. So check if the elbows are splayed. So walk the elbows underneath the body, so you're keeping that support in your shoulders and lifting the hips up. So you're now in your bridge up the wall. From here we can start to bring one knee into the belly and then push the foot back to the wall. So start to find that placement back to the wall so you never drop your back down to the mat. And then we can bring one knee into the belly, maybe both knees in, and then extend the legs up. Point the toes right up to the ceiling so we're not over your head but straight up, and almost think about tucking the tailbone to lift the hips up, and have a little go with focusing on the breath here. If it's comfortable to linger in the pose, stay here for longer. Always listen to what's going on in your neck and your shoulders. When you're ready to release the pose, bend the knees, push the feet to the wall, and lower all the way back down into your legs up the wall pose. So if you're working with the block, you're essentially getting this variation but slightly elevated with your hips. So you're in between that legs at the wall and shoulder stand pose, which is a really nice place to be. Again, if you want to be supportive for your body, we might have another go. So push the heels into the wall, don't slide the heels down because you want to keep the feet high. This is the beauty of using the wall for your shoulder stand. So you've already got the legs high up rather than moving into your pose from your bridge. So you can push the heels into the wall, lifting the hips as you bend the knees, lift the hands to your back, walk the elbows under, and start to lift the feet up into shoulder stand, focusing on the breath. Really good for stimulating the neck and the throat, so the areas that Taurus rules over. And when you're ready, just bend into the knees, slowly push the feet back to the wall and lower back down. And then letting the legs relax, feet can relax, keep the chin slightly tucked into the chest, hands resting on the belly, or there might be room for the hands, the arms to stretch out to the sides. You're more than welcome to have a few moments in legs at the wall pose for Savasana. Allowing your mind, your body to relax completely. You are more than welcome to stay here for as long as feels comfortable. There's no rush to move out of this pose. Do be mindful as you move out of legs at the wall pose, so you can bring the knees into the belly, gently rolling to one side. Stay there for a breath or two before rolling up to sitting. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you if you've joined me through the whole of our Taurus season or sequence. So from next week, we're going to be moving into Gemini. Do let me know if you have enjoyed the Taurus practice. Are you a Taurus? Have you found any traits that have really sort of you've picked up in yourself? Or are you looking forward to our next series? So thank you very much for joining me. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'll pop a couple of links here for some other videos, including the shoulder stand tutorial. Thank you very much, and I shall see you next week. Namaste.